David, welcome to the Leanpub launch video for the complete LPI Web Development Essentials Exam Study Guide. Learn the basics of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Express.js, and Node.js, and launch your career in full stack web development. So that's the full title of the book. I was wondering if you could take a few moments to just please talk a little bit about yourself, where you are, and who the book is for.
Okay, I suppose once upon a time I was an actual classroom teacher, but that now seems lifetimes ago. More recently, I've been a sysadmin, focused mostly on Linux and the AWS cloud. But also, as a teacher, I suppose, I create courses on Pluralsight and Udemy, if that's how you pronounce it. And a lot of those courses also end up as books, often coming through Leanpub. There's a workflow I have and there's a mindset I have that why recreate something when you can simply reduce, reuse, and recycle. So this particular book is natural for me. It's part of the Linux Professional Institute, the LPI Essentials series. They're moving away from Linux specifically now. They're really branching out into more platform neutral certification topics. And the Essentials series is for people who are not yet committed to a career in a particular technology, but are perhaps considering a career, but also are interested in getting the basics for other purposes to enhance other career tasks, other career roles they might have. So this one in particular, the Web Development Essentials, is for someone who might be a professional in technology in general or professional in some other area. And he's looking for, or she is looking for the basics, all the basics, not just the basics of HTML or the basics of CSS. I don't know if anybody does those separately, but the basics of everything you'll need for a genuine multi-level interactive website, including JavaScript and Node.js and database integration. So just the basics. You're not going to be a pro at anything, but the basics of all those you can get relatively quickly, relatively painlessly through the certification, and if I dare say, through my certification course and the book.
And as you say, you've written a lot of books, and you're always sort of making courses and stuff like that. And so the thing that as a content creator you're sort of like confronted with is like, which project should I choose now? And I gather you have a kind of interesting story about why you chose this particular project.
Yeah, this was fun. As everybody is talking about nothing but GPT these days, well, I actually was into GPT before GPT was cool. I'm talking 15 months ago now, in the ancient before times. So there is a tool, maybe it's been around 6 months, called AutoGPT that allows you to create an agent using the GPT engine itself, but create an engine and send an agent and send GPT effectively through the live internet. So you give it a task. In this case, I wanted to know how much demand there might be for this particular certification, whether it was worthwhile to invest the time and tiny bit of money, but most of the time into creating the course and the book. So I asked it, compare the interest and demand that you see everywhere on Reddit, on the connected to the LPI site itself, wherever on the internet you see a reference to any LPI Essentials course. Compare on a scale of 0 to 100 how popular you think each of them is, including this Security Essentials certification. And it gave me numbers. It spent about 4 hours at it, cost me about $3 in API fees, but well worth it. And it came back with numbers. I think the LPI Linux Essentials was like at 40 or something like that. And one of the Security Essentials was at 50 or 55. And the Web Development Essentials was at 75 or so. So I don't know where it got those numbers, but it suggested to me that this would be more popular, would have a greater demand than the other two. And I knew what value the other two had. So I figured, yeah, this is something, it's a reasonable gamble. I mean, maybe GPT is wrong, maybe it's hallucinating, as it does. But it made it a reasonable gamble. I did it, and it's so far working out pretty well.
Thanks for sharing that. That's a really interesting story. The uses that people are putting, sort of AI to are myriad. And in particular, in the publishing industry, one of the things that people are always told to do, if you want I'm not going to go too far into the weeds here. As I was saying before we started recording, my instinct is to talk for like hours at a time, and I'm going to try and keep these relatively short. But for anyone listening who's interested in writing their own book on a topic, if you were to approach a conventional publisher these days, try and get an agent and stuff like that, they actually ask you to write a business plan nowadays.
Yeah.
And
I've done it. And it makes the book better, by the way. It makes
and I'm sure that. So it could sound sarcastic, and like, it is a bit sarcastic when I say that, because it's kind of like, what's your job, publisher? Shouldn't your job be to come up with the business plan?
That was my reaction the first time I faced it. When I was writing a book with Manning.
Yeah, exactly.
They made me do that. My first reaction was to be offended. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing. In fact, it was the best experience. I'll let you.
I've actually never. I've done lots of business plans in my former life as an investment banker, but I can totally see how, like, having to focus on, like, what am I really writing about? Why am I really writing about it? Right?
Who are you writing for?
If you want to write, like, if you're inspired to write a great work of art, that's one thing. Forget the business plan. If you're writing to make money and reach an audience, both of those things go together typically. Then you actually really thinking about, like, what do I want to spend my time on? Why am I spending my time on this is really important. And typically what people do is they Google, right? They find similar titles, they see if they can find bestsellers in their area, stuff like that. And actually using a sort of any kind of tool to help you get information about, like, whether people are actually interested in a topic or not is just a really great idea, right? And it can just be arbitrarily Googling, it can be intelligently Googling, but actually using something that if you can find a kind of AI, and I've studied enough philosophy of mind that I have to do that, sorry, but if you're using AI and you're sort of like, looking for sort of tools to help you find out what you should write about, that's actually like a really great thing to do, is use prompts. And I hadn't heard of AutoGPT until you mentioned it just now, but anything that can be looking at the live internet. I mean, as you say, you've got to be worried about the hallucinations and stuff like that, but still, like, be an informed user. But that can actually be really a really great tool. And you mentioned also before we started recording that you write in Markdown, and that can be very useful. And so, just before I let you go, for anyone interested in, like, why would one write in sort of plain text in Markdown? What would be your pitch for authors doing that?
Well, first thing, and this is long before I even discovered Markdown, really, is word processors are, for me, in my experience, awful ways to write. It's a great place to I guess apply styles and to format and to typeset, but writing it, having all the auto correct and the auto suggest, it gets annoying. Now I'm trying to write. I'm trying to organize my mind, my thoughts. I don't need your thoughts in your mind. I know some people may work differently, and may or younger people especially may react differently to this, but I need something simple. And the equivalent of a plain blank page. And actually, my first writing project, my first book I published, I did write with pen and paper many years ago. But I need something plain, and so a plain text editor. In my case, I'm on Linux. I'm using gedit, which they refuse to call gedit now for some reason. They've taken away the name, but it is gedit for all I can, as far as I'm concerned. But it's plain. But it allows also visible formatting for any format you want. If you want to type in HTML or CSS or Markdown. So Markdown is a beautiful compromise between absolutely simple, but also very effective. So what I do, is if you use Markdown, that one asterisk before and after gives you italic, and two gives you bold, and a hashtag gives you H1, and 2 gives you H2. Those basics, how to create a link. So once you have all that, when I write, let's say, the script for a course, when I'm creating a course for Pluralsight or for Udemy, when I write the script, I have in the back of my mind that this will also one day be a book. So I am with very little overhead, seconds for a whole script maybe. I add in the syntax as I go, that Markdown syntax as I go. When I finish the script, when I publish the course, it's done. But those script documents now are available to become a book sometimes in 20 minutes. I can list sometimes, except there's a lot of code, but for books that are light on code, I can sometimes take those scripts and in 20 minutes make a book out of it, especially when I can just pop it into Leanpub's interface, the UI. It's like dead easy. And then once you're there, it's you can create a book. You can. I have many of my chapters end up as articles on Free Code Camp. So they also can take cutting and pasting from Markdown, and it's the integration is beautiful there also. So it's a seamless, efficient way to write and publish again and publish again.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for sharing all of that. Obviously, we could talk a lot. We could talk a lot longer if we wanted to. For anyone interested in me and David talking a lot longer, we actually did an interview for the Front Matter podcast for Leanpub way back. I'm looking at it right now, way back in 2019. So that was that. I mean, that, feels like longer ago than 4 years used to feel. But there you go. But so we'll hopefully I'll remember to put a link to that into the video description. But just a reminder to go back to the beginning. The book is The Complete LPI Web Development Essentials Exam Study Guide. This is a guide that will show you the introduction to sort of like all kinds of web development, really great stuff. Thank you very much, David, for being on this launch video, and thank you for using Leanpub for many of your books.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the platform, and it's great talking to you.
Thanks.